Hello and welcome to NewFilmmakers Los Angeles. My name is Danny De Lillo. I am delighted to be joined with Alice. We're going from LA to Toronto today. Alice, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me today.
No, thank you. Can't wait to talk about your film, but for those that haven't seen Signal Fire, let's take a look at a clip.
10年生死兩茫茫，不思量，自難忘。千里孤墳，無處話凄涼。縱使相逢應不識，塵滿面，鬢如霜。夜來幽夢忽還鄉，小軒窗，靜疏妝。相顧無言，唯有淚千行。
Alice, your film was just brilliant, wonderfully acted, fantastic story. I loved it so much. For those that haven't seen your film, tell us a brief synopsis.
Sure. A young man accompanies his Chinese grandfather-in-law to visit a loved one's grave. When they begin to pay their respects, the young man soon realizes how little he knows about traditional Chinese practices and ends up closing the distance between his grandfather-in-law and himself. So this film looks at the gaps within intergenerational knowledge and wonders how we find connections with others of different backgrounds.
Wow, it was so beautiful to watch this film and to see the wonderful Chinese traditions. It made me cry, actually. It was just so touching and beautiful. Where did the inspiration come for you, Alice, in creating this project?
Well, there is some background story, of course. Originally, the film was made as an art film for the Valley Art Gallery here in Ontario, Canada. The gallery selected 6 filmmakers to reflect characteristics of the city of Markham. So I needed something that realistically described life in the city. After observing Markham, I realized that almost 70% of the population were Asian. So I felt myself like majority in there. But especially there were large amounts of Chinese Canadians. So anyway, with this observation, I began to consider the types of experiences immigrants face. As you can probably hear from my voice, I'm also an immigrant. So I drew from my own problems of communication and identity. So first generation immigrants will always have a different relationship to their language and homeland than second or third generation immigrants. Thinking about these differences, I started going deeper to think about how even with a shared heritage, people end up with different understandings of identity. So at this point, I knew the subject was heritage and language, but I didn't have a hook. So I was on my way to Chicago at the time, and I asked my friend living there for advice on restaurants. And I remembered, wait a minute, this friend is kind of scholar of Chinese literature. So I asked him about his thoughts on my film concept. He sent me these beautiful poems about life and death, nostalgia and memory, and I was stunned. So I immediately wanted to visualize these poems or even just recreate their atmospheres. So to answer your question, inspiration came from 2 places. It came from the people of Markham and from the rich culture of ancient China. By merging these 2 ideas, the story grew into the film. So more than just language, the film is about connecting with experiences. I really wanted to show people communicating across generations, but also across history. Maybe this is a little bit long.
I love that. I wish everyone could explain their film like that. That was so amazing. Like, I just love hearing all of that. That was so wonderful. And you know, and I'm so glad that, you know, the traditions, you know, they go back to ancient China. Like, you know, it's a long time ago, and it, you know, and it's ancient China history is fascinating anyway. But I love that across the generations, these beautiful traditions exist. Thank you for now. I'm like mesmerized by what you just said. With your cast, I just found them so touching. Like that, I love them. Like, not just the dialogue, but just even just in the looks, the way they were communicating, it was just beautiful to watch. Tell us a little bit, Alice, about how you brought your cast together.
Sorry, my internet is unstable.
Oh, that's okay. You're good. You're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just explaining, about your cast. How do you bring your cast together?
You mean cast, right?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes. Sorry, my accent. Yeah.
No. Cast. Okay. Well, I'm actually Korean, so I needed to spread out our Chinese immigrant community, but at the same time, I think Asians or even filmmakers try to help each other. So whenever I post one place, they just spread out to the other community posting as well. So it was not that hard, but I think hardest part was the chemistry. So I found the young man through like 3 times of audition, but the old man is quite easy, but I needed to try so many chemistry with the candidates, but I finally found a really good chemistry. So it was not that hard, but not that easy.
It was very special. I don't want to give too much away, but I love obviously the moment, when when they were by the in the cemetery, and I love the moment when they're all together in the car. It's just so touching. It really came across beautifully. Now, I'm just curious, Alice, filmmaking can be tough. Was there any challenges that you faced in making this film?
Well, the grave sequence, obviously, it was hard for 2 reasons: fire and bugs. So a big part of Chinese funeral practices is the burning of fake money. Well, it could be a kind of a bribe for the gods in the afterlife to give the soul a better judgment. But the money burns much faster than our expectation. So anytime you are working with fire, you have to be very careful. But this was harder than usual because we are in a graveyard, so that means permits and oversight. But we also had a limited amount of fake money, and it would burn up quickly. So we would need to get a good take every time the money caught fire well. And second hard aspect was the caterpillar. Originally, we wanted to use an ant, but they ran so fast, so it destroyed the silent mood on that sequence. So next, we tried to use a snail, which is much slower, but we couldn't find any in our gardens. So luckily, on the day of shooting, our DOP suddenly found the caterpillar when he adjusted lens, which was so lucky. After we saw the footage, we realized that the caterpillar was so perfect actually, because caterpillars represent the cycle of life and death so well, of creatures changing into another form. So our challenges actually had a positive result at the end.
Wow, thanks for sharing that. It's fascinating. I'm just curious, like, this is a very, very, wonderful story. What did you want your audience to kind of feel like from your project? What did you kind of want that experience to feel like for them?
Well, for me, it is enough for my audience to feel the poetry and reflect on their own understanding. So my purpose in creating the film was to reimagine how we approach diversity in filmmaking. Combining authentic ancient and modern culture, I wanted the audience to consider how they imagine their own homelands. Well, Canada is a country built from immigration, and each of us has a homeland that we think about nostalgia. With every passing generation, we drift away from that homeland, but I think there's still a piece of it somewhere inside us that we still remember and have feelings about. And this film shows 2 people with very different ideas about their homeland, but they are still able to connect with each other on the human level, I think.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. What is next for you, Alice?
Well, my next, it's an ongoing documentary project. So I'm in the pre-production for my ongoing documentary project titled Home and Native Lands. It'll explore the complicated history of identity and life at the Japanese Canadian internment camp under the Rocky Mountain in British Columbia during the 1940s and 1950s. Thank you. Specifically, it looks at the experiences of two very different doctors born in two very different places, yet share the similar destiny. If you don't mind, I can explain a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay, so one person is Dr. Robinson, a white British Canadian, sorry for my expression, who was born and raised in Japan as a grandson of Canada's first missionary to Japan. By contrast, Dr. Shibata, a Japanese Canadian, was born and raised in Vancouver, BC as the first son of his Japanese immigrant parents. Raised in mirrored circumstances, both learned a harsh lesson when the Second World War forced them out of their homes in Japan and Canada, respectively, and led them to create new identities for themselves in Rocky Mountains at the interior British Columbia. Well, with Canadian federal and provincial art funding, aid from Hot Dogs Lab, and even the National Association of Japanese Canadians, this documentary, Home and Native Lands, will begin principal shooting soon. So I hope you get a chance to see in the near future at this film festival.
Yes, absolutely. I can't wait to see more of your work, Alice. Like, I'm excited for this project very much. So this is really, really fantastic. So I'm excited. I want to see it already. Thank you for sharing again. And just final question for you. You know, do you have any advice that you could share with our filmmaking audience? Anything that you go by that's helpful for you?
Well, I'm still learning stage. So, but when I think about my advice for other people, well, I was originally born and raised in South Korea and studied filmmaking in Japan, and I'm now living and making films in Canada. So because of the amount I move around, I've needed to start from zero more than once. In a field where connections are so important, it can be really hard to start out in a new place, I think. So if you are a newbie starting out, don't spend your time selling yourself or your talents. Instead, try to find others who connect with your art and your personality. If you are a person who is already established, please take the time to help others. We all got where we are based on helping hands. Nobody gets to be a professional filmmaker by going alone, I think. Additionally, I'd also like to thank the NewFilmmakers Los Angeles. This is sort of event that really, really helps people making connections and show off their work to a wider audience. So to everybody who takes the time for up and coming talents, thank you so much.
Alice, you're amazing. You're amazing. I'm thank you so much. Like, that was just so wonderful to just to hear all the great things that you're doing, your thoughts, and thanks so much for being so kind to us at NewFilmmakers LA. We loved having your film. So thank you to Alice. I hope you all enjoyed that wonderful exploration of Signal Fire and Alice's great talents. Thank you very, very much, Alice. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Danny and NewFilmmakers Los Angeles.